This is a Sports Catastrophe production. Hey there, Heather Ho, there's Jeff Cutter. I welcome you to another Sports Catastrophe birthday boy. There's no on this day today, unfortunately, but we can do a lot better. Anyway, we saw that, if you know who the greatest basketball player of all time is, obviously it's this guy. He's not yet 60, he's 59 today. Anyway, he is the greatest basketball player of all time, as they say. He's a businessman and former member. In fact, Michael Jordan was why basketball was popular in the 80s and 90s. I mean, a cultural icon and all that. So anyway, Michael Jordan did his job. I'll go over his main stuff and all that. So anyway, MJ was born in Brooklyn. He moved with his family to Wilmington, North Carolina. Tried out for the varsity basketball team during his sophomore year. He was then too short. So instead of that, he actually played for the junior varsity team and actually rode on the bus with the varsity team whenever he could. He was 5'11", but then he grew 4 inches and trained rigorously. He got part of the varsity squad and helped Laney out. He got to play in the 1981 McDonald's All-American game as a senior. And many schools recruited him. Duke, North Carolina, South Carolina, Syracuse, and Virginia were the big guys. But he went to North Carolina because it's close where he is. And he majored in cultural geography. As a freshman in the team-oriented system, MJ didn't really play it a lot. It was kind of a rotation and all that. However, MJ as a freshman would hit one of the greatest game-winning shots in NCAA history. With 18 seconds left in the final against Georgetown at the Superdome, MJ took a shot and floated it in. Not bad. MJ was good in NC, like for North Carolina. In his 3 seasons with the Tar Heels, he averaged 17.7 points per game, but he wasn't really this breakout star. But mostly because of a team-oriented system by Dean Smith, he wasn't featured as much. MJ decided to forego his senior year and enter the '84 NBA draft. MJ did return to North Carolina to complete his degree, where he got a Bachelor of Arts degree in geography. So anyway, MJ was good and all that. And then came the famous 1984 NBA draft. Who would go number 1? Well, Houston, after taking Indiana's pick in a trade, got the number 1 pick and took Hakeem Olajuwon. Well, it was natural because Houston needed to get a center, and Olajuwon played for the University of Houston. Then you got Sam Bowie for Portland, who was taken 2nd overall. MJ could have played for Portland, but no, he didn't, because one of the main reasons why he wasn't drafted till 3rd by the Bulls was that the first 2 teams needed a center. And Portland also had Clyde Drexler, who was a guard with similar skills to MJ, so I didn't think that I don't think they could have fit both Drexler and MJ in the starting lineup. And the Blazers' pick of Sam Bowie was the worst draft pick in North American pro sports history, according to ESPN. I would disagree. I'd say Greg Oden, going 1st overall, was one of the worst. But anyway, Portland needed a center. Bill Walton was gone with the team. And back in the 80s, before MJ revolutionized the NBA, it was a centers league. Like Bill Walton, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Will Chamberlain, Bill Russell, Willis Reed. You got it. If you get a good center, you'll be good. Otherwise, you're stuck in the dust. And Chicago got MJ and all that. Yeah, Portland had Clyde Drexler, so it was hard to believe. And Bowie did okay, but then he got his foot problems from the University of Kentucky. Guy missed 2 seasons because of that in college. Anyway, MJ made his debut at Chicago State in October 1984. And did well. He got 28 points per game in his rookie season. He was a fan favorite and all that. MJ was even an all-star starter during his rookie season and all that. He was named NBA Rookie of the Year, obviously. The Bulls actually went to the playoffs, even though there were 6 games below 500, but lost to the Bucks in the first round. Anyway, MJ unfortunately had a bad sophomore season. He broke his foot in the 3rd game of the year, making him miss 64 games. The Bulls were 30-52, still made the playoffs for some dumb reason because the NBA was weak at that time. And strange as it sounded, the Bulls would have to take on the Boston Celtics in the NBA playoffs. Well, the 86 Celtics won the title, but MJ put up a 63-point playoff performance in Game 2. Yeah, granted it was in double overtime, but still it was fantastic. The Bulls still lost that game. That was weird. I mean, I need to look at the 85-86 season because I'm like, how could they have? It was the top 8. Yeah, there were only 11 teams in the Eastern Conference that year. Top 8 made the playoffs. Cleveland won 29 games, Indy won 26, and the Knicks won 23. So obviously, what can you do? No crossover. If it was a crossover, well, Phoenix, the Clippers, and Seattle would have all made the playoffs. Anyway, MJ would have a great season in 87, becoming the first player other than Will Chamberlain to score 3,000 points in a single season, putting up a 37.1 points per game average. Despite MJ's success, Magic Johnson was given the MVP nod. But in 1988, MJ would be a star. 35 points per game, first MVP award. And let's not forget that slam dunk contest against Dominique Wilkins when he floated from the free throw line and won the contest, even though it was in Chicago. And had a little bit of a bias. Anyway, the Bulls did well, but they lost to the Detroit Pistons in the second round. In 1989, MJ did it again. He led the league in scoring. And MJ actually became a point guard because the starting point guard, Sam Vincent, couldn't run the team in MJ's mind. The Bulls won 47 games and advanced to the Eastern Finals. Of course, on their way to the Eastern Finals, they shocked Cleveland in a winner-take-all game. Game 5. Now remember, the first round was the best of 5 till 2003. So anyway, MJ took a shot over Craig Gulo and put it in, knocking out the experienced Cleveland Cavaliers and putting the Bulls in the second round when they shocked the Knicks. 2. MJ's shot over Craig Gulo was the last buzzer-beating game-winning shot in a winner-take-all game until Kawhi Leonard's famous shot in the 2019 playoffs for the Raptors. Anyway, the Pistons would use the Jordan rules to guard Jordan, double and triple teaming him, and the Pistons took care of the Bulls in the playoffs. The Bulls were in the 1990 season. They got to the Eastern Final, but they lost to the Pistons for a 3rd straight year, this time in 7 games. So the Bulls were getting closer to the Pistons, but the Pistons kept knocking them out. So MJ, in his second MVP season of 1991, would lead the Bulls to the promised land. They won. They won the division for the first time in 16 years, won 61 games, which was a franchise record at that point. And the Bulls elevated their play. They took care of the Pistons in the Eastern Finals in 4 games. That wasn't even close. They went to the finals against the LA Lakers. They lost Game 1 when MJ missed the buzzer-beating shot. And in Game 2, the famous moment was when MJ went for a dunk attempt, but then at the last second, he switched his hands and threw up his shot and went in for a layup. Now, of course, he knew that Sam Perkins, his fellow North Carolina alum and teammate, was going to block him. He knew he had to do something. MJ did his job. 31.2%. 31.2 points per game in the playoffs. And the Bulls beat the Lakers in 5 games. Shocking that the Lakers would go down so quickly, even though they had Magic Johnson and James Murphy. In 92, the Bulls won 67 games, beating their mark from 1991. MJ won MVP. The Bulls almost blew it in the second round against the Knicks, only winning in Game 7. Cleveland, they had to polish off Cleveland in 6 games. Then they met Portland in the final. The team that didn't draft Jordan and decided to go with Sam Bowie. Would MJ make him pay? You bet he would. Especially in Game 1. When a 35-point performance in the first half happened to MJ. He put up 6 3-pointers, and then he jogged down the court out of 6 3-pointers, shrugging at Marv Albert and Max Johnson, who were doing the game for NBC. MJ helped the Bulls win in 6 games. He had 35.8 points per game. In 93, he lost the MVP to Charles Barkley. However, the Bulls would meet Barkley in the finals, the Bulls and Suns. The Bulls survived a 6-game series with the Suns that included a triple overtime win by the Suns in Chicago. But of course, it was decided by the last-second shot in Game 6. But no, it was not MJ who took the last shot. MJ passed off the last shot to John Paxson at the 3-point line and puts it in for 3. I think that John Paxson's 3 and subsequent game-winning shot in the 93 NBA Finals is severely underrated. I mean, they knew about MJ, but John Paxson, he could have botched it. Anyway, he put up 41 points per game in the finals, a record. And he got another finals MVP. Well, obviously. MJ had things going his way. He had a 7-year run getting 7 titles, scoring titles, and 3 championships. Unfortunately, MJ was seen gambling in Atlantic City before a game against the Knicks in the playoffs. He had to cover $57,000 in gambling losses. And an author said he owed him $1.25 million. David Stern denied that MJ, when he retired in 1993, was a suspension for gambling. The rumor spread widely. And shockingly, on October 6, 1993, MJ decided to retire from the Bulls. I guess he figured he had no more challenges left. Kind of stupid, don't you think? I mean, the Bulls could be chasing the 8 straight titles by the Celtics in the 50s and 60s. Unfortunately, it was weird. He lost his desire to play basketball. But unbeknownst to the rest of the world, there was kind of a reason. MJ's dad, who was going to a funeral, was actually carjacked and murdered on the side of a road in North Carolina. His body was dumped in a South Carolina swamp and wasn't discovered until 10 days after his death and all that. They found the 2 teenagers after they made calls on James Jordan's cell phone. Were convicted and sentenced to life in prison. So yeah, MJ lost his dad, his inspiration for getting this far. MJ was close to his father. All that. MJ's retirement shocked the world and all that. I mean, and it was done just before the White Sox were playing the Blue Jays in Game 1 of the ALCS that year. For the record, the Jays won in 6. Anyway, so MJ shocked everyone by signing a minor league baseball contract with the Chicago White Sox, February 1994. It was helpful for the White Sox because Jerry Reinsdorf, who owned the Bulls, was also owned by the White Sox. He went to spring training and was put in the minor league system. In 94, he had a famous exhibition game which the White Sox took on the Cubs in the Crosstown Classic. And MJ did pretty well. So MJ said that the decision was made to play baseball because of the dream of his late father, who wanted his son to be a major league ball player. So MJ played for Birmingham, the AA affiliate. Not doing that well, batting 202, just above the Mendoza line. With 3 home runs, 51 RBIs, and many errors. However, MJ would try to be better. He actually went to the Arizona Fall League, which is a fall league meant to have rookies hone their skills. And did pretty well, batting 252 against the top prospects in baseball. So anyway, his number 23 was retired on November 1st, 1994. And had a permanent sculpture known as the Spirit outside the new United Center. Because the United Center replaced the Chicago Stadium. The Bulls still did okay without MJ, winning 55 games and getting to the second round, losing Game 7 to the Knicks. The 95 Bulls were struggling. They were 31-31 at one point. But MJ decided to quit baseball and go back to the Bulls, shocking a lot of people. However, there was a factor. The factor was because of that freaking MLB strike that dragged on, and MLB wanted to use replacement players if things didn't improve. MJ didn't want to be a replacement player. He didn't want to cross the picket line. So he'd rather go back to basketball. So he did. He took on the Pacers for the Bulls on March 19, 1995. He did okay. MJ wore 45 only because his 23 was kind of retired. So MJ did his job and all that. Jordan, despite his hiatus, did well. He put up 55 points against the Knicks in a nationally televised game. So this was huge. The Bulls ended up being on a 13-4 run to get to the playoffs and got to the conference semis against Orlando. Sadly, though, Orlando would take him out and all that. MJ was stripped of the ball at the end of game 1 of the conference semis. So he decided to change from 45 to 23. Unfortunately, that was kind of wrong, and the Bulls were fined for failing to report the impromptu number change to the NBA. And Jordan was fined for opting to wear white sneakers when the rest of the Bulls wore black. Despite all that, that was actually good. MJ was motivated by the playoff defeat, and he trained aggressively for the 96 season. And with Dennis Rodman joining the team from San Antonio, the team dominated. They started at 41-3, which is amazing. The Bulls would get 72 wins. Not the best in NBA history. That would be the 2016 Golden State Warriors. However, the 96 Bulls had the most wins by a team that won the title. Now, everyone knows one of those 10 losses, well, I keep repeating it, one of those 10 losses was against the expansion Toronto Raptors at the Skydome in a game I remember watching on CTV and all that, which was amazing. I mean, these Raptors taking out the Bulls, I think I did a video on that. I betcha I did. Obviously I would. Or did I not? Uh-oh, I didn't. Jeff Diamond did not do a video on that game. Well, you know what? I'm gonna make sure I do that game. So, thankfully, I write that down. So anyway, the Bulls only lost 3 times during the postseason. They swept Miami and Orlando. They lost 1 game to the Knicks and lost twice to Seattle in the finals. But MJ did his job. He swept the All-Star Game, regular season, and NBA Finals MVPs. The only other guy was Willis Reed in 1970. Of course, after the Bulls beat the Sonics in Game 6, on Father's Day, MJ was swept up in emotion, clutching the game ball and crying on the locker room floor. Remember, this was the first title since his dad's murder. Gotta respect the guy. In 1997, the Bulls only won 69 games. They almost got to 70 wins, but they lost the last 2 games of the season. The Bulls went to the finals against Utah. Despite Chicago doing well, Karl Malone won the MVP. MJ was known for his clutchness. In Game 1 against the Jazz, he hit a buzzer beater shot. In Game 5, MJ was feverish and dehydrated from a stomach virus. In what was called the flu game, which a lot of people think is overrated. He scored 38 points to give the Bulls the win. And then in Game 6, he passed off the ball to Steve Kerr for the winning shot in the NBA Finals, which was amazing. MJ and the Bulls won 62 games in the 98 season, and MJ did it again. Another MVP award, his 5th. The Bulls actually were pushed to Game 7 against the Pacers in the in the conference finals, NBA semis. It was the first time MJ had to play a Game 7 since 1992. Thankfully, though, they survived against the Pacers. The Bulls faced the Jazz, and in Game 6 in the 98 playoffs, MJ made some great plays. The Bulls were down by 3 with 41 seconds left. MJ got the inbound pass and scored to make it 86-85. However, the Jazz were trying to set up for a shot, and the Bulls were careful not to foul the Jazz because they didn't want to put them on the line. Unfortunately, MJ stole the ball from Malone and went up court, dribbled down the court on Byron Russell of the Jazz. And then there were rumors that MJ pushed off on Russell, which would have been an offensive foul, but it wasn't called, and he scored to make it 87-86, and the Bulls won the game. They got another three-peat, and MJ did it again. Finals MVP. He's got 6 of them. The second most league MVPs. Finals MVPs for LeBron James with 4. The 98 Finals is still the highest TV rating of any finals in history. And this is like 1998. Gosh. So anyway, the Bulls had problems. There was a owner-induced lockout of the NBA. Phil Jackson's contract expiring. Scottie Pippen and Dennis Rodman are pretty much gone. MJ decided to retire on top, which was smart. And in 2000, he returned to the NBA as part owner of the Washington Wizards. And he was president of basketball operations. As he controlled all aspects of the Wizards' basketball operations and had the final say on personnel matters. One good thing he did was purge Washington of several highly paid unpopular players such as John Howard and Ron Strickland. Unfortunately, his biggest mistake was in the first pick of the 2001 NBA draft, drafting Kwame Brown, a high schooler of all things. Sadly, though, Washington would rue that, as Kwame Brown did not do so well. He did win a title as a backup for the LA Lakers, but I mean, that wasn't good. Pau Gasol was still on the board. Jason Richardson, Shane Battier, and my man from Arkansas, George Hudson. But still, yeah. MJ figured he wanted to make a comeback with the Washington Wizards, even though he said he wouldn't. But he was inspired by Mario Lemieux's comeback, so what the heck? Well, Lemieux was player for the Penguins, so he decided to train it and all that. And he made his comeback September 2001. He wanted to play for Washington. But he decided to donate his salary to the victims of the 9/11 attacks. Unfortunately, MJ would be injury prone. But he still led the team in scoring with 22.9 points per game. Washington had a winning record and had playoff contention, all that. But they missed the playoffs. MJ only played 60 games in that year. In his final season, MJ became the all-time leading scorer in All-Star Game history. But not anymore because it's Kobe and LeBron. Anyway, MJ played in all 82 games, the only Washington player to do so. Of course, in the All-Star Game, Vince Carter, who was supposed to be a starter, reluctantly gave up his starting spot to MJ. MJ did a good All-Star Game, I'll say that much. MJ in February 2003 became the first 40-year-old plus to tally 40-plus games in an NBA game. All that. So, anyway, Washington did not make the playoffs. So, obviously, he criticized his teammates to the media, including Kwame Brown, who he drafted. But MJ, did his job. The last game was in Philadelphia, of all things. Anyway, yeah, MJ played for the 92 Dream Team, which dominated everybody. He was a good shooting guard and all that. He had a good legacy. They said he was a fantastic... his legacy is, very good and all that.
Anyway, he actually got inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame in 2009. Unfortunately, his speech was terrible. Like, he burned a little bit of bridges. But anyway, his emotional reaction during his speech would become the crying Jordan internet meme. Anyway, in 1,072 regular season games, he averaged 30.1 points per game, 5.3 assists per game. And who said he was selfish? In the playoffs, in 179 games, he averages 33.4 points per game, 5.7 assists per game, and 6 NBA titles. So, 6-time NBA champion, 6-time NBA Finals MVP, 5-time MVP. Surprised he won more Finals MVPs than regular season MVPs. Rookie of the Year, 1985. Defensive Player of the Year, 1988. 10-time scoring leader. 14-time All-Star. 3-time All-Star Game MVP. 2-time NBA Sun champion. That was 87-88. One of the greatest 50 and 75 players in NBA history. His number 23 is retired by the Bulls and the Heat. The shocking thing is Miami retiring his number 23. Why? I don't know. That's pathetic. So anyway, NCAA, he led the Tar Heels to the 1982 NCAA National Championship. He was the ACC Player of the Year in 84, although they didn't get far in the playoffs. Love you. So he's in the Hall of Fame. And, he's Sports Illustrated Sports Person of the Year in 1991. 10-time ESPY Award winner. All that. The Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2016. And, it was amazing. All that. But after Washington dumped him off, he bought a minority stake in the Charlotte Bobcats / Hornets. Became the second largest shareholder and all that, trying to help Chicago out. Jordan wanted to be had majority ownership, but he did it. In March of 2010, he became the first African American majority owner. Well, of course. So, unfortunately, though, Jordan sold off Jordan was part of the 2012 NBA season, where Charlotte won 7 out of 66 games. The winning percentage was 106. Charlotte lost their last 23 games. So the 106 winning percentage was worse in NBA history. Worse than the 1973 Philadelphia 76ers, who hold the record for a worst record in a full season with 9 wins out of 82. So, anyway. Yeah. So Jordan was the fourth of 5 children. All that. MJ married Juanita Fanoy in 1989 in Vegas, having 2 sons, Jeffrey and Marcus, and a daughter, Jasmine. Unfortunately, they filed for divorce in 2002. They reconciled, though. Jeffrey Jordan played for Illinois and Central Florida, but he's the co-founder of Hair Jordan, a philanthropic foundation that he runs with his younger brother, Marcus Jordan. Yep, so the 2 Jordan boys played for UCF. Anyway, they reconciled, but then they again filed for divorce, and it was dissolution in December 2006 because the decision was made amicably. But Juanita received a $168 million settlement, which was the highest divorce settlement on public record at the time. Yeah. So, yeah, his 2 kids played college ball, but they didn't really do so well. But I think they didn't want to. Anyway. Jordan actually proposed to his longtime girlfriend, Yvonne Prito, in 2011 and got married in 2013. But it's funny that Prito gave birth to identical twin daughters. So MJ has twin daughters as well. So he has 5 kids. Lots of endorsements for MJ, of course, who was marketable. Business ventures, he did a lot of philanthropy, film and TV. Obviously, he was part of Space Jam 1. Space Jam 1 was a pretty good movie in '96. It dealt with NBA players. It dealt with the Monstars, and the Looney Tunes and all that. MJ did a good performance in that. I really liked it. Of course, there was an IMAX documentary about his career with the Bulls called Michael Jordan to the Max. I remember that because that was a DVD I bought at Walmart years ago, before I moved to Kitchener. Anyway, 2 decades later, MJ's career was covered in greater personal detail by The Last Dance, a 10-part documentary on ESPN in 2020. And had 500 hours of candid film about Jordan, MJ's, and his teammates' off-court activities, which NBA Entertainment did in '98 for use in a documentary. They wanted the project to keep going, but MJ did not give his consent yet. But he was interviewed at 3 homes associated with the production and did not want cameras in his home or on his plane because there's certain aspects he wanted private. So MJ kind of was a ham in a sense. MJ actually was in a couple of games. Michael Jordan in Flight and Michael Jordan Chaos in the Windy City. So, yeah, it's funny. 3 aside and all that. I gotta take a bigger, deep thing into that, but not yet. Michael Jordan Chaos in the Windy City by Super Nintendo. They planned it in Sega. So it was a two-dimensional platform game and all that. It doesn't really work. It's not that bad. All that. But, MJ in a platformer, I don't know. It just doesn't make sense. Doesn't matter, though. Because MJ is one of the greatest players of all time. That's why I'm giving you a half-hour video on him. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. I do.